Hello, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools and also in Lightning. And welcome to the third webinar in our Getting Started series on the Power Platform. So we've already had Sandy Usia, who's on the call today as well. She's been giving a couple of Getting Started webinars on both Power Apps and also Power Automate over the last few weeks. And today is the third one, which is on Power BI. And in 2 weeks' time, we're also going to have a webinar on getting started with Microsoft Teams that, although it doesn't fit directly into the Power Platform, is something that, of course, is useful to have a good getting started webinar on that, so you know your way around Teams, especially when working remotely nowadays. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then we'll jump into Power BI and explain the agenda and everything that you can expect from today. So my name is Brett Lonsdale. I'm the founder of or co-founder of Lightning Tools. Also the co-founder of Enlightning, which is a brand new company formed this year with Sandy. So Enlightning, you can get there by going to enlightningtech.com. And Enlightning is a company, it's a sister company to Lightning Tools, and basically we provide coaching on different areas of the Power Platform, as well as SharePoint and Teams and so on. So if you haven't done already, you can go and check out enlightningtech.com and find out everything about what we do. I'm also the co-host of a podcast called Techsplaining, and that's with a few other MVPs, and we talk about different things around Microsoft. So it could be Microsoft 365 and the different technologies there, but also cover other aspects as well around the sort of Microsoft technologies. And I'm also a co-organizer of an event. I've been organizing SharePoint Saturday for many years now, and this year, because really it's not just SharePoint anymore, we've actually kind of rebranded and gone with Collab Days. So we're hosting Collab Days, which was intended to be an in-person event in Birmingham, but is going to be a virtual event. So no matter where you are in the world, if you wanted to attend Collab Days Birmingham, it's going to be on the 28th of January, and there's a URL there which will take you to Collab Days. That's also going to have lots of different sessions by lots of different speakers on the Power Platform, from SharePoint, Teams, and also Azure as well. So if you haven't done already, feel free to check that out. So you'll see a sort of trend here. I'm a co-everything. I never do anything by myself. So so that's me. And the session today, what we're going to talk about is, first of all, what is Power BI? So if you haven't dug into it or considered it for your organization before, we're just going to sort of have a look at why you might want to use Power BI, what benefit would it provide you for your business. And we'll just spend a couple of moments on that before jumping into the components of Power BI and starting to look at the different aspects of it, such as how we connect to data, how we build reports with the visualizations, and how we transform that into dashboards as well. That'd be useful for our organization to be able to spot trends and things like that. So this is the kind of agenda that we'll be going through. There's going to be lots of hands-on as we do some demonstrations, and then at the very end we'll have a Q&A as well. So if you do have any questions that come to mind, feel free to put them in the questions pane. Sandy will be able to read those out at the end of the session, or if you're feeling brave, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you if you wanted to perhaps explain a little bit more than what you can put into a chat window. So let's get started on what is Power BI. And I guess it doesn't really matter how big or how small your organization. One of the things that you're going to come across inside your organization is lots of different silos of data. Even a company our size, we're a fairly small company, and we already have this same issue where we've got lots of different systems that we use. They could be cloud-based systems or on-premises based systems. We actually don't have on-premises, they're all cloud. But those systems all have data somewhere, and of course, it's sometimes useful to build reports in a central place. So a lot of these systems also provide their own reports, but some of them are actually reports, so things like Excel workbooks and things like that. But they're all sort of scattered, they're all silos, and perhaps nobody knows where to go and find them and that type of thing. So really, we can use maybe SharePoint, Teams, or even Power BI itself, a Power BI dashboard that people can access as a way to really sort of feel the pulse of our organization and to be able to spot trends and make better business decisions by bringing all of that data together into useful data visualizations and useful reports. So yeah, if we just have a sort of scenario around that, even an organization our size, we use HubSpot as a sales CRM system, but linked to that is of course marketing. And we could say, well, we've got our website and we use Google Analytics. We also have some pay-per-click advertisements going on inside Google Ads. We use an accounting software as well that's cloud-based. And by connecting to all of these different systems, we can start to bring that information together and to be able to really build out reports so that we can see how well we're performing in marketing and sales and see if there's any commonalities between them. So it might be that, a product is not selling so well. And this would allow us to sort of really drill into what that reason is, maybe have a look at some insights around why that product isn't selling so well. And it could be that, the Google ad has dropped or something, or has been removed by Google AdWords and we just didn't have time to log in and check it. So anything like that could actually be an underlying reason that could go unmissed for days, but the report would be able to flag that up for you, and you'd at least be able to see something was amiss to go digging. So that's the type of thing that you'll be able to do by getting a better understanding of your data and using some of these visualizations. So getting started is what this session is all about. So we're going to kind of presume no knowledge, but basically there's three different apps that we're going to be looking at. One of them is the Power BI desktop. So we're going to start off looking at Power BI desktop, where you can get Power BI desktop from, and why excuse me, why would you use Power BI desktop in the whole sort of scheme of Power BI? And then we're also going to have a look at the sort of cloud-based Power BI service as well. So we'll look at how we can utilize that for collaborating and sharing some of our reports and dashboards. And there's also the dedicated mobile app as well. So Power BI Mobile, which is available for iOS, Android, and so on. So you can go ahead and download that and be able to view your reports and dashboards just from your mobile phone. Okay, so they're the sort of three elements. So getting Power BI, there's a couple of places where you can get it from. There's actually a link at the bottom here, and we'll be providing the PowerPoint slides after this webinar as well. But basically, if you Google or Bing download Power BI, you're going to find it really easily. And you can go onto there and it'll bring up this page where you can just click onto the download free button, which is just literally going to give you a download to install it, or you can use the C download or language options, and that will allow you to choose 32-bit, 64-bit, or different languages for your environment, your preferences. But better than that is to actually go to the go to the Microsoft Store. So if you navigate to the Microsoft Store and just get Power BI desktop from there, and that way you'll get all of the updates. So Microsoft, of course, throughout the whole Microsoft 365 solution, including the Power Platform stuff, they are making updates all the time now. So you can very quickly end up with a installation of Power BI desktop that is out of date. So if you get it from the store, you don't have to keep reinstalling and updating that manually. You could go ahead and just receive those updates automatically. So there are a couple of places where you can get the Power BI desktop from. What we're going to take a look at today, once you've got all of that installed and everything, is basically how to get going with datasets and what datasets are. So we'll be connecting to some different types of data and building out our data set. And once we've got that data set created, that's when the fun stuff will start, and we'll start to build some reports with some of those visualizations and so on, the different types of charts and maps and things like that we can build to really reflect how well our data is performing. And we're then going to transform that into a dashboard, and that can be available through a workspace. So we'll go through all of those different steps, and you'll learn what all of these things are as we go through the slides and the demonstrations. So starting off with data sets. So basically a data set, we can connect to a data source, and that data source could be like an Excel workbook, as mentioned. It could be Salesforce.com. It could be Zero Finances. It could be all sorts of different types of data that we want to connect to. And what we can do is select which type of data from that data source we're interested in seeing. So we may not be interested in every single aspect, and if we're not interested in every single aspect of that data, then we shouldn't include it when we're building out our reports. It should be really purposeful for this specific dashboard, and therefore we're going to perhaps model our data, and we're going to transform the data. So for example, there might be columns that you require that you want to create so that you can make your dashboards better. You can get better visuals if you've created some custom columns that are doing some custom calculations, or you're creating some new measures, or maybe you're applying filters and so on that wouldn't necessarily be applied to the actual data source itself, but you're applying it to your connected data, and therefore that becomes your data set. So that data set should be something that you can rely on. It's not something that's going to change frequently, so that people become to sort of trust that data. So you would take some time in taking your Excel workbooks or whatever it is, modeling that data, getting it right, so that you can produce some really good, meaningful reports going forwards. So the data set, it could be just a single table. It could be a single Excel workbook sheet. It could be a relational database with lots of different tables, anything like that. And it can also be a combination of more than one data source as well. So you could actually have perhaps an Excel workbook with a connection to a CRM system and maybe a connection to Google Analytics, all coming together in order to be able to build a meaningful dashboard so that you can see how well your marketing and sales are performing inside of your organization. So once you've connected to the data set, you can go through and start to build your reports and so on, which you'll see in a moment. But depending on the type of data, if it's just a single table, obviously you may still need to do some work on that, reformatting certain columns, splitting out certain columns, or maybe creating additional columns within inside the data. Or you could also be building relationships between multiple tables as well to get the type of report that you want. And throughout this demonstration, we're actually going to use this example, which is the Northwind database. If you're familiar with that, it's been around for many years now. You can get it for Microsoft Access, you can get it for SQL, including SQL Azure, but it's also available as an OData service. So you can really play around with a sort of good example database for an organization. So we've got products that are all categorized. They're all sort of grocery type products. So we'll have beverages and different food items and things like that. And there's also other tables like customers and orders and order details and things like that. There's a shippers table that we're going to be using. So you'll see here we've not taken all of the tables from that data source because we don't need them all. We're just taking those that, like I said, are going to be useful to build our reports. And this is the tool that we would use to actually transform our data. So once we've created the connection inside of Power BI Desktop, there's a button in Power BI Desktop in order to launch the Power Query Editor, and it's basically the transform button. So we can click onto that transform button, and that is the tool that we could then use to start splitting out columns, reformatting columns, detecting different data types, as you can see in here, and doing a number of different things so that we get the data right in order to produce our reports. And this is often where you'll be spending most of your time, is getting that data right so that your visuals are more powerful and more reliable. And a relational database is going to be relatively easy to work with, but of course, if you take an Excel workbook that has perhaps not been created with Power BI in mind, there could be quite a bit of chopping and changing data around in order to get a useful data set. So yeah, changing the formats of the data, cleaning your data, and perhaps also aggregating the data as well. So you could end up with hundreds of thousands or millions of rows inside of some data sets. So one of the things you can do with data aggregation is basically group by certain columns, perform the aggregation in the data set, and then you've got things like the sum, average, min, max, count, things like that you can use in some of the columns where you've grouped by maybe country and so on, and that can improve the performance but also the reliability of your data. All right, so we're going to take a look at all of that and jump into a live demonstration. So we're going to start off just with the connection, and we'll create a connection to an OData feed. We'll do a bit of transformation. We're going to create a custom column so that we can make our visualizations better, and I'll explain what we're going to do with that in just a second. So I'm going to launch Power BI here. And all I've done is literally just start Power BI up. And once we've started it up, you will usually get like a yellow dialog, which actually gives you some really useful resources. It links out to some blog posts and videos and things like that to help explain Power BI. So really worth taking a look at those. But from there, basically, we're going to go to the get data from another source, and that's going to launch the dialog for me, where I can go through and get data. And you can see in here, there's lots of different things that we can connect to. So some of these are on-premises databases where it's using the common data gateway interface. We've also got things like Excel, there's text files, even XML and JSON, etc. There's all sorts of data that you may want to connect to in here. There's LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Google Analytics and things like that that you could use as a connection. So really worthwhile spending some time in here and having a look at the different types of things that you can connect to. So yeah, I'm just going to do a quick search here because when you're presenting, you for some reason can't find things. But yeah, here's the OData feed that I'm going to connect to, and this is a great way to just play around. So as we hit connect, you'll notice that it just requires a URL, and that's it. And the URL that I'm going to use is actually going to come from here, odata.org. If you've been on any of my webinars previously, I tend to use this as a good example for things like our data viewer product and things like that. But go to odata.org, and under developers, you'll find there's reference services. And we're going to go to OData version 3, and that has the Northwind read-only example that we can connect to. So basically all we need to grab here is the URL to the Northwind service. So I'm just going to grab that and copy that and come back down to Power BI desktop, and we're going to paste in that URL and we're going to connect to that. So I'll just hit OK. And just give this a moment. And here you can see all of the different tables, and there's queries in here as well that we could connect to and start to build our visuals on those. So what I'm going to do here is just grab a few of these different tables. I'm going to have categories and I'm going to have products. So these two are related with a one-to-many join. I'm also going to take the customers and the employees, and what joins a lot of these together is the orders and the order details. And you'll see how all of these are joined in just a moment. So these are the tables that I need to start building out the report that I want to build. So I'm just going to hit the load button, and that will take that data. It's evaluating it, it's loading it, and it's basically creating my model for me, loading in the data, and we can start to play around with it in just a moment. Okay, so you don't see it yet. It's allowing me to just jump straight in and start creating visuals. But let me just show you on the left here. We've basically got three different views here inside of Power BI Desktop. We've got the visuals view, which is where we can build pages and build our visuals. Underneath that, I have the data. So in here, we can see the different data. So notice I've got categories. So these are the categories of products. I can see the customers in here, and we've also got things like employees and orders and order details and things like that I selected. Now, one of the ones that we're going to do a little bit of transforming with is this table here. You can see it's very much a junction table. It's got the order ID and the product ID, and then it has the unit price, the quantity, and the discount. Now, one of the things that I want to report on is actually I want to get the value of these orders, because I want to see things like, you know, who's my best performing salesperson. And you're not the best performing salesperson because you've placed the most amount of orders or you've sold the most quantity of products. We really need to know what the value of those orders are. So what we'll do in a short moment is go through and create a new column, and you can see that I can do that from here as well inside that table view. But yeah, here is the ability to also build out our model diagram. So basically these tables already had relationships. If they didn't, you can simply just drag and drop. You can double click the join. So that will allow you to see how these are related with the one-to-many relationships and things like that, and so on. Okay, so that's our model. And if we just go back here to the data view, you'll notice there is the option to transform the data. Sorry, it just disappeared on me there. Okay, so I'm just going to transform the data, and that will launch the Power Query Editor. So from the Power Query Editor, we'll go through and select the order details. And like I said, we want to create our own column so we can determine the value of some of these orders. So in here, we've got the Add Column button or Add Column ribbon. So I'm going to select that. And from here, we can create a custom column, give that column a name. So I'm just going to give this a name of order value. Okay, and then we can create our calculation. So we need to use a little bit of BODMAS, as I call it, so brackets of division, multiplication, addition, and subtraction. So we'll take the unit price and multiply that by the quantity, and then I'm going to deduct any discount that was applied. So that gives us our calculation. It's verified that there's no errors detected. We can click on OK and see the result of that calculation immediately. So there's our order value now for each line item inside the order details. Okay, great. So there's the Power Query Editor. We can close that down. It'll ask us if we want to save it. So yeah, we'll save that. And that is now saved out, so we can start to build some visuals and include that column inside those visuals. You can see here it's dropped into the diagram for me, and as we jump up to the visuals, excuse me, the canvas, we can see it here as well under the field. So as I expand the order details, there's the order value that we can start to add into our views. Okay, so there's lots of things that you can do in there. There's filters, there's reformatting and things like that. And like I say, if you're taking over like an Excel workbook and building some visuals on that, you may have quite a bit of work to do. But that's the sort of thing that you can do with the cleaning of your data. So let's get into the fun part, and this is where we're going to start to create some visuals and build out our reports. So yeah, the reports are basically multiple pages, so we can create one or more pages, and each of those pages can have one or more visuals on it or visualizations that represent our data in the way that we want them to. Once we've built that report, we can then publish it into the Power BI service, and that allows us to share it with other people. We can choose what workspace it's going to go into, and we can start to build out our dashboards and so on as well. So the report canvas, you've kind of already seen it in that demo, but basically with inside this report canvas on the visuals view, we can just double click to get started. That's going to create the Q&A visual, which we'll be taking a look at in a moment. But we've also got these other visuals that come out of the box with Power BI that we can utilize, or we can also go out to AppSource as well and grab some third-party visuals from there as well, and I'll show you how to do that as we go through. So there's all sorts of different visuals that we can connect to. So we'll select the visual that kind of most likely represents the type of data that we want to visualize, but don't be afraid to play around here and really experiment in order to get the right type of data view for you. So yeah, we'll jump on. So there's the appropriate visual. We'll basically go through and select the columns that we want to map into the visualization, and then once we've done that, we can also do things like applying filters and so on to the data if we're bringing back too much. So the last one before we jump into the demo is the double click to ask questions, and I'll be showing you that in demonstration anyway. So you can just double click anywhere on that canvas and ask a question of your data, and it will suggest the right type of visual based on the question that you asked and how that data is going to be displayed. So let's take a look at that. There's a few different visuals that I want to work with. So again, let's just jump back into Power BI. So what we're going to start off with is around the products table here. So you can see the products. We've got things like the product name, the unit price, the units in stock, units on order, and the reorder level. And basically, I just want to do that. I want to see how much stock we've got for our products. So down here, I'm going to name this page. So we'll just call this like stock report or something like that. And we'll select a visual. So I'm going to go with this one, which is a line and stacked column chart. So all I need to do is select that and it drops that onto the page. And of course I can resize it and everything. It is going to fit to my content anyway. But yeah, underneath the products here, you can see we've got things like the product name, which I'm going to select, and that immediately becomes the title, and it's put that under the shared axis in here. I also want to have some obviously column values, so they are going to be the we're going to go with the reorder level. We're going to have the units in stock and the units on order. So just by selecting those, I've got myself a chart. I've got myself a visual. I can drag it and drop it and make it as big or as small as I want. Now, clearly there's a lot of products on there. I don't want to be scrolling left and right. So we really want to sort of get down into the type of data that we want to see. Now, some of these are actually discontinued products. So you'll notice on the left-hand side of this slide out panel is the filters, and under here we've got some of the different things that we can filter on that we selected. So we've got the product name, the reorder level, units in stock and units on order. So we can filter on any of those, but we've also got other columns as well that we could filter on, like discontinued. So all I need to do is drag the discontinued into the filters, and now I can apply a filter on that. So you can see there's 8 discontinued products and 69 of them are current. So we're just going to basically show the current ones. We don't care about the discontinued products. So that's brought it down a little bit, but I can also go across the different tables since I've got those joins, and we're going to come up here to the categories. So there's a one-to-many join between the categories and the products, and what we're going to do is select the category name, so that becomes available as well in my sorry, I shouldn't have just selected that, I should have dragged that. So I'm going to drag the category name over here into my filters, and you can see here we've got things like beverages, condiments, confections, dairy products, and so on. So me being me, I'm going to go with beverages, and I'm going to go with meat and poultry. So we'll go through and select those, and as you can see, we've now got a more sort of meaningful chart. We can see the type of food that we want to eat and make sure we've got the stock of it. So yeah, we've selected those, and you'll also notice that we've got so 3 columns shown in here, but what I want to do is actually show the units in stock as the line. So I just need to drag that down to this line values, and notice how my chart adjusts. So I can see the current stock level, and then we can also see the columns illustrating the reorder levels and the reorder amount. Okay, so that's our first visual done. So very quick and easy. So we're just going to double click and create a new page. So we can create a new page if we want to maybe categorize the different types of data, but you can have more than one visual on each page as well. And what I want to do here is actually build a sales revenue by city, so we can see where in the world we're selling our products. So in order to get started with that one, I'm going to select this visual here, which is the map. So we just drop that on. Again, we could resize that to as big or small as we want. And in here, we can go through and select the column. So I'm going to go under the orders, and we're going to grab the ship city, so where the product itself was shipped to. So you can see there, it's already given me the different places based on our data where we've shipped our products to, but what we don't see is any sort of illustration as to how much. So we're going to get that from our order value that we created. So I'm going to select the order value, and it's dropped that into the legend by default. So we're just going to bring that down to the size property, and by dropping that into the size, you can now see that we've got bigger circles for bigger volumes of orders going to each of these different places. Now the legend part is if we wanted to maybe sort of categorize that out a little bit. So maybe if we wanted to show the different category names that we're selling into these different countries, and we can see that we get the legend across the top, and as we hover over each of the different cards, and of course we could zoom in on this, we'll see what we're selling into each of those cities as well. So you can decide whether or not you want to go into that sort of detail with it. All right, so nice, quick and easy visual. Now the same goes for the columns and any visual. Basically, we've got also the ability to go in and customize every sort of aspect of these. So if we wanted to change the the data colors or the background, or we can actually make this a heat map instead of having the circles and things like that. There's different map styles that we can choose from. You can change the sort of default size of your bubbles and change the data color. So if you don't like the blue, you could choose a color that suits better, and so on, all from within inside these properties. And obviously those properties are going to vary based on the type of visual that you're working with. All right, so that's our sales revenue by city. And the next one we're going to do is a sort of along the same lines, but we're just going to create this one as a tree map. So this is going to be the freight costs per country. Now I could put this in a map as well, but just to be different, we're going to go with this guy, which is a tree map. So I'm going to drop a tree map on here, and again make that a little bit bigger. Within our tree map, we're just going to select two different fields, the ship country and the freight. So from the orders, again, we'll grab this ship country and we'll display our freight costs. And there we go. We can see the biggest freight costs that we have is the USA, second to that is Germany, and then Austria, and so on. So it's giving us that tree map so we can determine the size of those values. And now we can keep on adding to this as well. Maybe there's different types of products have different freight costs associated with them. So therefore, if we just maybe throw in the category name as well, that can be some details that we add to this tree map as well. And you see those details as you hover over, so you can actually see the freight costs as well as the category name as you hover over it. All right, and just another sort of similar one to that, we're going to go with a key influencer, which is this one here on the right. And this is quite an interesting one. Oh, sorry, I just kind of replaced my tree map then. Okay, so my key influencers, what I can do with this. Sorry, no, what I did is, yeah, I still had that selected, so I converted that one, which of course you can do if you wanted to play around with different types of visuals. There we go. So as soon as I select just the canvas, click onto the visual I want again, I can then go through and select the bits and pieces that I want. I'm going to go with freight and ship city. So we'll again get the freight costs and the ship city in here, and notice how it's running an analysis. But what we can do is choose these different sort of influences, and in here we can now see what influences the freight cost. So it will show a different visual based on each of these, but yeah, if the ship city happens to be Barcelona, then that typically means a lower freight cost that we can see inside this chart here. So if we made that bigger, we would be able to see it a bit more clearer. There we are. So yeah, there's our chart, and yeah, we can go through each one and see what influences those. So you can sort of explain the influences by different things. So maybe if there was something else that determined the cost of the freight, then yeah, that would be something that you could maybe explain your data by as well. Okay, and yeah, the last one that we're going to look at before we publish this to a service is the Q&A. So we're creating here another page, and we're going to call this one employee performance. All right, so really we're interested in our salespeople, so that's why we added the employees table in here. So we want to start reporting on some of those. Now, I'm not going to start off with a visual. I'm just going to double click. So double clicking anywhere on the canvas here will add the Q&A visual, which you can see is selected here. So that's the default visual if you just double click. And in here, there's just a number of things that you can go through and select. So I can see the employees, and that will represent as a table here because I didn't really give it anything else to go on. So there's all our employees. So I'm just going to select that one again and remove it. So we'll just double click. And in here, there's a few others that we can choose from as well that it's suggesting, but I can actually go in and create my own questions as well of the data. So yeah, there's all sorts of ones in here. So top products by number of order details. There we go. So if I just select that, here's the the products that appear most in the orders. So we have that as a very quick chart to get at. So there's one of them. I'm just going to double click again, and this time we're going to ask our own question. So average order value, and remember order value is the column that we created. So I even spelled average wrong. There we go. So there's our average order value. So really straightforward to get that. And I'm just going to double click again, and we could say average order value by country. Okay, so there, and it suggested this time a column chart, but actually let's just change it to average order value by employee. Sorry, no, forget that one. That's just where the employee lives. So yeah, by country was absolutely fine. Not by ship country. There we want to be specific. All right, so we get some of that data coming back, and so on. You get the idea. So you can just simply go through and query all of these, and we'll just do one more, which will be number of orders by employee. All right, so we've got that information on there as well now. So the number of orders by employee, we could have the order value by employee, and so on, depending on what we want to obviously display on here. So each of these start off with a Q&A. We can make those a visual just by clicking this this icon here. So that then becomes saved as the visual that it suggested. And of course, we could change out that visual and change the properties of it and so on. So hopefully that's given you a sort of idea on the type of visuals that you can create. And we've got a multi-page report. The next thing I'm going to do is publish it out. So let's just jump straight back to the slides. And one of the reasons for publishing it is I'm going to publish it in a service so I can easily share it. So I might want to share it into SharePoint or into Teams, or just have it accessed by Power BI itself using the Power BI service, or we could also create it in a workspace which would allow people to come in and collaborate. So the workspace is basically a Microsoft 365 group that happens to have a Power BI report published as a dashboard, and people can collaborate, and you can set different permissions for different users throughout that Microsoft 365 group. So we're ready to share our report. So all we need to do is click on to publish. So we can then choose a workspace that we want to publish this to. So really straightforward, and you've got a My Workspace, which is a little bit like your own OneDrive, if you think about it that way, or you've got a shared workspace, which is the Microsoft 365 group, where other people can collaborate on it, you can discuss it, and so on. And yeah, part of that is building a dashboard. So we've kind of got a dashboard already, but it's in the form of a report. What we're going to do now is basically select the different visuals that we want to appear on our dashboard. So this becomes a more sort of polished thing. So we create that dashboard, and that dashboard is then accessible through the different workspaces. So you can easily create a new dashboard or add some visuals to an existing dashboard. And once you've got the dashboard created, you can share it. As mentioned, you can comment on it, you can mention people, we can chat within Teams and do a number of different things around that dashboard. And there's also a mobile view as well that you can select so you can see what it's going to display like on the Power BI mobile app. Okay, and yeah, the last thing we'll just talk about briefly in our demo this is the fact that you can also do a quick insights. So once you're in Power BI service, if you're not sure how to sort of query your data or the types of visuals you want to create, you can actually do a quick insights, and it will generate on the fly a whole bunch of different visuals for you based upon your data. So let's jump in and take a look at those aspects. So as we go back to Power BI, I'm just going to hit publish. So yeah, we'll save this and we'll call this Power BI webinar. Okay, so that is now saving my data set, and it's saving my report with, of course, the visuals on it. and it says not responding. That's because it's a webinar. Let's just give it a moment, see if it comes back to life. Okay, yeah, not sure it's, there we go. It has. Okay, so we're going to choose a destination, which will be my workspace. So I'm going to select that, and it should ask me if I want to now launch this in Power BI service. So it's just publishing at the moment. Yeah, so we could get those quick insights now, or we could actually open this in Power BI service, which I'm going to do, and that's just opened up on my other screen. So I'm going to drag that on here so you can see that. And there we go. So in here is our now published report. So as you can see, we can go through and select the different pages that we created within inside our report. So we could just share the report and not create a dashboard. So the thing is, this is like sharing a file that is in my OneDrive. It's my file. I'm just letting you view it. So in here, one of the things we could do is embed it. So if I come down here to embed report and I choose SharePoint Online, it's going to give me a code that I can highlight and copy. And as we then go into SharePoint, which I thought I had open, just bear with me 1 second. Let's get there. All right, let's create a brand new site. So I did have a page ready to go here, but all fun and games. Okay, so that is now created. It's got a brand new Power BI, and in here we're going to go through and create a new page. So we'll select our page. We could call this sales reports or whatever we want to call it, obviously on our sales team site, and we can go in and add a Power BI SPFX web part. So in the list of web parts here, there's Power BI, so we can select that and just close down the settings here, click onto add report, and then we can paste that link in. Okay, and then we can choose the page that we want to default to. So we can go through and select maybe the employee performance page, see all of that information in here, and publish our page out. So now we've got that page published, we can go through and select the different pages with inside of SharePoint. And of course, you could also do the same thing with inside of Teams as well. So there is a Microsoft Teams tab for Power BI that you could add, and yeah, you could do exactly the same thing, paste in that code, and it's going to render inside of Teams for you. Okay, so that's one of the things that we can do to easily share a report. But what I want to do is start to build a dashboard now, because yeah, we want these to fit nicely into a tile, and that could be something that everybody can start to collaborate on. So one way to create your dashboard is to just move your mouse over the visual and pin it. So as we hit pin visual, it's going to give me the ability to create a new dashboard. So we'll call this Power BI webinar dashboard. Okay, so I'll pin it to that. And it asks me if I want to create the phone view or just navigate to the dashboard. And you can see by navigating to the dashboard, we've now got that on here as a tile. So yeah, as I go back in to my report, we can take any of these and start pinning them. So on that same dashboard, so I don't want to go to the dashboard this time, we'll just take a few of these and we'll vary it. So we've got the map on there as well. And our tree map. and maybe our stock report. Okay, so they are all pinned to the dashboard. So now when we go to our dashboard, we've got this one sort of single view of everything that's going on around the sales and the products and the freight costs and the employee performance in our organization. And like I said, you could share this. So if we hit share, we can grant access to different people. We can give them the link. But basically, anybody that this is shared with, it's very much like SharePoint. This is an Office 365 group after all. So anybody that we share this with can also come in and edit. You can change those users to be able to just view only if you want to. But yeah, there is the ability to now start collaborating on this. So other people could use my data set to build their own visuals on my dashboard if I share it with them. We've also got a chat in Teams, which basically just generates a URL directly to the dashboard. And there's the comment and subscribe as well. So if you wanted to subscribe to this, then you could actually have this link sent to you periodically as the data changes. That could be sort of every day or every week or whatever you determine is best for you. So that's how we can go through and create a dashboard. And that is organized into a workspace. So a workspace is basically a Microsoft 365 group that allows you to sort of collaborate on this. But I created this one in my workspace, which is like my OneDrive. It's my own space, basically. So I can build up my own reports within here. Now, the other thing to mention as well was the insights. So what we can do is generate some quick insights. So here's our Power BI webinar data set at the bottom. So I'm just going to click onto the ellipsis next to that, and notice there's the Get Quick Insights. So if I click Get Quick Insights, we're just going to wait here for a moment whilst Power BI sort of figures out some useful data based on our data set and visualizes them for us. And some of them really aren't that useful, but there's also some other really useful ones as well that you might find, and then you can go through and pin those to your dashboard as well if you wanted to. So we can click onto View Insights, and here we are. We've got some of those just refreshing right now, but it's actually built quite a few different insights. So here's a not so useful one. You can see there's more that have higher freight costs for some reason. There we are. The ship via so sales representative does more shipping. Well, it's probably because it's their job, but yeah, there's lots of different things in here that you can see as different insights, different sort of chart ideas, and of course you could take those and customize them to make them your own, and if you like, pin them to your dashboard. So I just simply click pin again, and that's going to appear on your dashboard as well. So it's a great way to get started, to see the types of visuals that you could create, even if you perhaps don't agree with the sort of thing that it looks like. You could go through and change it to your needs. Okay, so that's a really sort of useful way to get started. Now, another way to get started as well is through apps. And apps, there's a whole ton of different apps. There's some that I've been playing around with here, but you can click onto this one and get some more apps. So there's some apps that have already been created, things about COVID and things like that you can just go ahead and use. So Google Analytics and so on. And these are basically workspaces that already have dashboards and everything ready to go. So you can just start using it. And there's some third-party ones in here as well. And one that I really particularly like is this one here from a company called Tygraph. So if we select Tygraph, you'll be able to see the sort of things that they do, and basically they analyze lots of different products inside the Microsoft platform. This particular one here is SharePoint Analytics. So if ever you wanted to sort of see usage reports and engagement reports and things like that about how well your SharePoint is being used, then this is one of those. Basically, it's reports that you can just start using, and if you want customized, but you can use it right out of the box. So that's a really useful app to take a look at. Okay, so coming on to some resources just before we jump into a Q&A. There is some places that you can go to get more information. Obviously, this was just really to help hopefully get you started with Power BI. So one of them is really, really good, and this goes across, everything that Microsoft is doing at the moment for Microsoft 365. They've done a fantastic job of not just their documentation, but also lots of different getting started guides as well. So there's a link here. Again, if you just Google Microsoft Learn Power BI, you're going to find it. And this will take you through some different steps and quiz you as well, so you can see how well you've understood some of the different concepts. So that's a great place to get going. Jason Himmelstein and John White are, well, John White is actually the guy behind Tygraph. That's his organization, but together Jason Himmelstein and John White have something called the Bifocal Show, which is a podcast, so well worth listening to. There's some useful videos as well, which you'll find from Guy in a Cube. So again, if you just Google Guy in a Cube and Power BI, you're going to find them. And of course, we've also got Enlightening Tech for Power BI coaching. And if Power BI is not for you, if you just want something sort of simple that you can add into Teams and add into SharePoint, that's not really sort of business intelligence, but some simple sort of charts and data views with conditional formatting, things like that. Then we also have the Lightning Tools Data Viewer as well as a product that you can access. So I think I've got 8 minutes for Q&A. So if there is any questions, I don't know, Sandy, if you've been fielding any.
Thanks, Brett. That was a really useful webinar. Well, Karen was asking if there are any integrations between Power BI and the rest of the Power Platform, like Power Apps and Power Automate that we talked about in the previous webinars.
Fantastic. Yeah. So obviously, one of the things that you did with Power Apps and Power Automate, they kind of flowed. Pardon the pun. But you had your webinars that sort of followed on from each other, and this one didn't so much. So yeah, is there a well, how would we be able to integrate those two products into Power BI?
Yeah, so there are a couple ways. One is that you can actually add a Power App to a Power BI dashboard as one of the visualizations. That's one of the visuals that you can get in the menu. And so that would give users a way to actually enter data and then have it display right away in the rest of the Power BI dashboard. Or they could use it kind of as a super powered filter also, where you can design the filter mechanisms just the way you want in a Power App and then have that filter through to the rest of your tiles. And then conversely, you can add a Power BI tile to a Power App. So if you've got something that you want people to have as part of a bigger app, then you could add just individual Power BI tiles to it that also are connected as far as the data changing and stuff like that. And then Power Automate can be integrated by things like you had the data alerts that you were setting, and so you could put a Power Automate behind that data alert, or so it catches the data alerts and does other things besides just alert you, like maybe it's gonna write something to somewhere or something like that. So there are a fair number of different, and there are other things as well, but there are different integrations among the Power Platform, which is kind of the whole idea.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like another show, another webinar.
Yeah.
Maybe we can do that one in the next series. So yeah, that sounds really good.
And we have one just saying give good feedback and thanks for the session, and it's useful to get started. So thanks, Morelli.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So I think a familiar name there that's been on a couple of the other webinars. So yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to join these, and I'm glad you're finding them useful.
I think that's it, though.
All right. Well, I guess thank you very much, everybody, for attending. This was recorded. It is going to be published on both our websites. So it will be on the Lightning Tools website. It'll also be on Enlightening. So you'll get there first if you go to YouTube. So if you're not already following us on YouTube, then feel free to do that. You'll easily find Lightning Tools on YouTube and Enlightening on YouTube as well. So you can follow those and look out for the videos as we publish them. But they will appear on our website as well, probably by tomorrow, because it's late here in the UK. Right. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And if you can make it on the Teams webinar, getting started with Teams, that's going to be in 2 weeks' time. So look out for our next email newsletter that is going to have the link to register for that one. All right, thanks a lot. Thank you,
Thank you.
Cassandra.